I'm Rodd Duff, your host.
And I'm producer Barbie.
And together,
we bring you our podcast,
Insights and Straight Talk. And with that, producer Barbie and I are out. All righty. How you guys doing? You'll notice, possibly, hopefully not, because the system tends to take out background noise. But the same issue we're having yesterday, we're having today. It's not as bad in that they're putting a new roof on here, and I'm in the third floor of the library here at the Mangum City Library, and so with that, we may have a little bit of noise accompanying construction noise. They're replacing the roof. Construction noise going on during the show. But with that, welcome back to Open Mic Friday. I'm really glad you all are here. If you've been with us through the week, you probably noticed something besides the noise. These conversations were not isolated. They were not random. They were layered. We talked about sales and entrepreneurship, not as hustle, but as access. We talked about AI and real estate, not as shortcuts, but as systems that reward understanding, right? We also talked about scaling vision where capital and execution either align or they collapse. We talked about resilience, parenting, leadership, and identity when life does not follow a clean script, right? And we talked about reinvention after disruption, when stability has to be rebuilt, not assumed. Sure, different topics, same underlying pressure. How do people actually prepare for the world they are living in, not the one they were promised? That question sits at the center of everything we do here at Insights and Straight Talk. And it is exactly why this show exists as independent media, supported by people and partners who believe clarity matters more than clicks. Not sponsors chasing attention, sponsors who understand that structure, education, and honest conversation are public goods. This week's conversations point directly to the same truth explored in column number 7, last week's column in the Mangum Star-News. Education has to stay. Opportunity has to grow. And neither of those happen by accident. Preparation matters. Systems matter. Mentorship and access to real conversation matter. When education mirrors real life, people gain footing, When it doesn't, they graduate with anxiety instead of agency. That's why we talk about readiness here. Not ideology, not theory. It is also why we partner with community institutions, educators, counselors, and forward-looking sponsors who are willing to invest in stability, not noise, okay? Because independent media only works when it's rooted in responsibility. So today's open mic is not a recap. It's a continuation. We're talking everything we've learned this week and turning the lens inward towards stewardship, toward education that prepares instead of pressures, toward opportunity that grows because people understand the systems they are standing in. That is the ground we are on and standing in today. And with that context set, let's open the mic. So, how are you all folks doing today? It's been a crazy week. We are not going to be in the library tomorrow, as well as we are not going to be in the library on Monday. So we've got the holiday is coming up on Monday. So when there's a holiday that falls on either a Monday or a Friday, they close on Saturdays, the library. I've had that scheduled out, and so I'll be doing my home office or my home studio this weekend. Get caught up. Hey, there's 193 people here already. Wow, that was quick. Appreciate you guys. Come in, subscribe, hit the like button, and we might even have a guest today. I'm kind of excited about that. We'll see how that goes, and we'll introduce you to him if and when he comes in the next, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes. So this week has been an interesting week, and in the Mangum Star, I'm a columnist, and in that episode, or in that not episode, in that column that came out this morning, we were talking about stewardship, and next week we're rolling that into comparing capitalism to socialism to communism. So we're really building on a theme here of as we in this show talk about a lot. What we do here is about working actively within your own life. Through that, building yourself with the inside. And from that, you begin to understand the real meaning and the treasure of stewardship, of education, of the things that this country, all middle class Americans, and by extension across the world, the middle class, need to understand is that for us to really achieve, we get a lot of shiny objects, out there, the media, the politicians, and it's literally ingrained within our culture now to accept certain realities, and it's a sad case of where we stand as a membership in the human species. We've really come to the point where it's literally ingrained in us that we only have certain aspirations to go for, and that's our own fault as well. Being individuals. That's why we're working on the Regeneration School project. Let me spend a second here, or a minute here, and talk about what that means. Let me go back to notes. Off. Come up here to comments and turn that on. There we go. Okay, we're set now. 320 people on Open Mic Friday. We got a good showing so far. I appreciate you all being here. Please subscribe, hit the like button. But as I was saying, the true shame, the true, not shame, but the true bummer, the true disadvantage of the, like I said, we're being ingrained in us the ability not to aspire. I mean, we think it for this and that, but what we really need to do is Regeneration School have this fifth core project or program, core class. So you have math, you have science, you have English, you have history, and then let's call it, for a placeholder, let's call it fifth core subject is life. And in life, you have a lot to prepare for. And where this show is coming into your home, into your earphones, into your computer screen, why we exist is to bring the middle class together. Okay, that was the original mantra, the original scope of this show. Bring the middle class together. That continues on. But as we continue to go and grow, we also started to realize, we've done almost 470 shows with experts on almost every show. Some of these are independent, just myself speaking, reflecting, or taking on a subject of its own, on my own. We got some questions starting to come in. I'll get to those. But as we started to grow, and through these experts and through these discussions, it's becoming evident how much more there is about this show that can pay things forward. Talked a lot about on yesterday's show about paying things forward, and that approach to leadership. And so where we're going here is that we really need to step back and challenge everything that's going on in our society, from soup to nuts, all the way through, because at this point in time, the Regeneration School Project, starting K through 12, and then a handoff to Leaf Lab for the preparation into work and getting at the front of the line in applications. We'll talk more about that later as well. But starting K through 12 with those 5 core subjects and counselors that support administrators and teachers, with that all going on, now you have the opportunity to start preparing kids for life. Mental health, their voice, their ability to sit and discuss with adults, basically preparing, starting young, and then going in, and by the time kids are stepping out into the world, they have a certain amount of preparation for it already. Elevated human species. I'm looking at 1, 2 generations going through the process, the 5th or 2nd life, and you have an elevated species far beyond anything that we know as a human civilization, species, civilization, neighborhood, family, than we've ever. Here's what I mean by that. So you have somebody starting in kindergarten. They're going through their process. Now, I think, but just let me interject this. It's really important. Because with Doge and the looking at the school system, there's money in Doge that is being found to populate the revenue needed to improve the entire school system from top to bottom to top, from inside out. And so we've spent billions of dollars on Band-Aids that never work. We're not spending that much money on a system that's going to change the world. When you have a child going through K through 12, going through this, understanding themselves, being understood by others, having counselors as a periods in class, having that counselor now understand through time and discussion and work where that child's interests are developing. The one thing about the European school system, I'm not, but at least there, they from a younger age, they start guiding kids into whether it be sports or academia or nursing or teaching, sciences or biology and all that. They now develop their interests. They start steering that education cycle for that more heavily influenced path or lane. All right. So the interesting thing is we can do that to another level. We in this educational system started here in Mangum because it's small, but it's the county seat, so it's county. So it's got a lot of things that a little so it's small, so it's manageable. But then also that pilot program can be pushed across state by state, city by city, community by community, educational. I shouldn't say that. Educational system by education. Very exciting situation. Let me hit a couple of these messages. We'll bounce back and forth and have a good time with it. Brandon, how you doing? How can education better prepare for real life pressure situations? Great question. So, as a matter of fact, next week is a lot about education. We're building on this subject of education, and we're going to be talking about system. So take what's going on in the world today. There's a lot going on, so not all. I'm just going to talk about part of it. Oh shoot! Hang on, folks. I'm going to take myself off stage, and wait. I'm going to take myself off stage, and I'm going to put this on. Let's see if I can do this. Welcome. I want to put, what's this one? Be right back. I left my water. I left my water in a different, in the other room there. I apologize about my unprofessional attitude. But let's get back to the show. So, what's going on today, right? So, there's a lot going on politically, and unrest, and all sorts of things are happening. As a matter of fact, we're going to talk about next week. We're going to talk about the situation in Venezuela, Iran. We'll go back into history and compare how systems evolved or devolved or dissolved, kind of like what's happening in Iran and Venezuela. But the education is that here in America, okay, we have the next generations are continuing all over the world, obviously, but are continually coming in to the economic system. So we have a bunch of college and paid agitators and groups that are protesting for things like Venezuela, for things like socialism is a good thing. Why? Why? Lack of education, socialism, and communism really aren't. First of all, it's here in the United States and really all over the world, because of many factors, the administration are now starting to address many factors that have gone on for a long time. People are now not able, young adults coming in, not even able to afford to buy a house. It's always been the foundation, the ground of which the American dream stands for. Reality, those people in the great middle class today, that's not a reality. And the reason being is because of the lack of education about what our political structures are trying to do. The deeper, let's call it deep state, the deeper situation, the deeper issues that are driving certain aspects of this nation and Europe as well. But that education, that stress of not being able, or that pressure of not being able to provide for your family has caused many young people who don't know about the realities of socialism and other systems. People who don't know that reality don't understand that the issues that are with that come with those systems. Now they have financial pressure. Now they switch and start listening to people who are divisive. Start listening to people who have these ideas, but they don't have truth tied to those ideas. That's why we have a mayor in New York that's that's why we have Michigan, people coming in and taking over that state. Same in Minnesota. There's a lot going on, folks. And education, it's clarity. People start asking questions that they wouldn't. An educated mind is hard to deceive. An educated mind is hard to and that's the issue that we're really dealing with right now in this country and across the world, is that the systems have been building up for this moment in time, and we're in a real fight for the rest of the world, the way the rest of our world, the whole world's going to look, and not too long of a time. It's not a dangerous time, but it's a critical time. It's a very critical time right now that we come together, that we get educated, and that we make decisions that are bettering and for the betterment, solely for the betterment of the United States of America. So, Brandon, Mr. Turner, good looking suit. Good look. You got a good vibe going there, brother. That's how I would answer that question. And let me know if you have any other questions on top of that one. Chris Hanna, how you doing, my friend? What does readiness actually look like in everyday work and leadership? So it looks like calm. It looks like confidence. It looks like stability. It looks like security. And it looks like comfort. And Barbie would say it looks like love. Because when you're ready, when you have readiness, you walk prepared. You aren't walking out and you aren't stepping into a world blind. You're not walking into a darkened room. Readiness looks like utopia. Readiness looks like eagerness. Readiness looks like happiness, right? Readiness looks like love and compassion. Readiness looks like there's a future. It's an important question you're asking here, because readiness goes out into the world full of readiness. We're a better place. You know, we talked yesterday again, and we talked to a number of experts about the human species has a frequency. And that frequency goes out about 6 feet around you. That's why you can kind of sense when somebody's coming up. Is that frequency being disturbed? And you just get a feeling, right? A gut instinct, right? You have 3 brains, right? Gut, the brain of the gut instinct. It makes you look around. And that frequency, when you go out into the world, you've heard of the butterfly effect, right? Butterfly flaps its wings and feel the wind across the seas, right? Readiness in that vibe goes out in effect. Passed by people. Your aura, your terms for it. But as you pass by people, you're having that effect on their energy. You know? And you're paying that forward, you're passing that on. Readiness looks like utopia. That's what it is. If you want more on that, brother, hit me up. I'll be here all day. No, I'll be here for a while. We've been here 30 minutes on. And again, I don't know if you guys can hear this or not, but I apologize about all the tapping. It's going to look beautiful after it's done. And all next week, I won't have to worry about this. But Antoni, what role does mentorship play in building lasting opportunity? Well, so you're referring to yesterday's show, gentleman up in Canada, great guy, Daman. And I referred to that show earlier in the monologue where we were talking about how paying it forward, right? And the approach that you have and the energy. We talked about all those subjects and through leadership. And so part of that discussion we had yesterday, we talked about people make decisions, right? And they make decisions based on whatever education, whatever input they have from their world. And during that discussion, it was really interesting because as we were talking, the discussions turn to the decisions you make that develop your life as you're going along, right? So as you're starting off and you have a mentor, and I highly recommend, check out the show. It's the end of the show. I put his contact information in the comments and in the comment. Listen to the show, but then reach out to him. It really has a handle on that, and it's the way you process things. So as you're starting out, let's just stay with mentorship for a moment. As you're starting out, if you're starting out with the input of somebody who's done that before, one, you're going to start off a little further ahead than you would have just learning it yourself, back and forth. But two, you start off making better decisions right out of the gate. Sorry, I got distracted there. I'll be with you in a second, Penny. You start making those better decisions right out of the gate, and then those build upon themselves. I have a special guest here, folks. I am very excited to introduce Penny. How are you, Penny?
I'm doing great, Rod. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Let me ask you a question now. Can you hear banging?
I can actually this time. Yeah, I hear them working in the background. It's not that distracting, but I can hear it.
It's not? Okay.
Nah.
Yeah, I've been going along. They told me it would only be yesterday. Remember we talked about that yesterday?
We did. Yep.
It's not as bad as, except at moments. They're using the guns to put the. Yesterday they were taking the hammer and
Right, and that's the
putting all
staple
the
gun
nails
things.
You know how fast they're going? That must be fun to do, though. You know, that's a blast to do.
Well, as you know, Rod, I'm in Texas, and it's probably similar for you, but I get a new roof about every 5 years, right? So, the different storms and hail and things like that we get. So I'm very used to that.
I think we sent you one of those. No, you sent us one of those just not too long ago, like 5 months ago or so. And when I moved into town back then, it was right after a hailstorm, a huge, terrible hailstorm. And obviously that's what this is from. But I was blown away because when I came into town, this little town, everywhere there was roofers on every freaking house.
They're knocking the doors too, and those roofers come from everywhere. By the way, too, they have websites and they descend in.
They follow the storms.
They do.
They actually follow those storms. Technology is pretty cool. Well, we're in the middle of a discussion here, Penny, and you're the perfect person to be part of this for as long as you can hang out with us. We're talking about education. And we've gone through a couple of the questions already. How can education better prepare people for real life pressure situations? Right? Great question. Another one here from Chris. What does readiness actually look like in everyday work and leadership? Which I thought, well, you'll have to go back and listen to it, Penny. I thought it was a beautiful answer to his question. And then we were just talking about what role does mentorship play in building lasting opportunities. And these questions are coming because on Fridays we kind of go back over, not to review, but to take the content that we had in each show and have a mini version of that show, right? And talk about what we learned and what we went over during that week. And this one was from yesterday, a gentleman up in Canada, really neat guy, but it was about leadership, and it was about the approach to leadership and the mindset of paying it forward. A bunch of really cool topics, but your timing is really good. What about this question by Faz Rott? What a cool name. What skills matter? Do you mind answering a couple of these questions?
It'd be my pleasure. It'd be my pleasure. Absolutely. I there's no prep here, but we'll see where my brain goes with some of these, right?
Yeah. I figured I'd throw you a curveball right out of the gate here.
I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid.
This morning when I emailed you, I invited you on, right? I said, hey, why don't you pop on a couple of minutes and we'll see, what happens. And I knew we were talking about education today, but I didn't let you know that I'd want you to be like answering some. Do you want to take any of the ones that I already went through, or do you want to just hit this?
I mean, I'll take the one on the screen right now to start with. My thoughts around this idea: what skills matter for long-term stability, financial or emotional? My first reaction when I read the question was, I'm not sure that financial and emotional always go at the same rate. They might go like this. And what I mean by that is this is the history of the workplace in the last, say, 30 years in the US, is that those two don't go together. That in order to make more and more money, you have to sacrifice something on the emotional side. I'm also finding that our younger generations right now are asking exactly the right question, and it only takes one word: why? Why is it that it has to be that to make more and more money, you have to have some level of corporate trauma that you've gained along the way? And I agree with their question. You know, I'm not 14 like Fazrat is, but I think that way sometimes. He's asking the right question. So what are the skills, though, that matter for this long-term security? So you have to really work on these two tracks as if they're two separate tracks. Track one is the financial piece, and that is getting your education and getting your work experience and doing all the things that you need to do. But the emotional piece is the part that my generation feels like we're not entitled to it, quite frankly. And I feel like my generation has taken decades of abuse from bosses because we didn't ever understand that we have a right to be emotionally well in the workplace. And where I see this play out now is the younger generation are saying, I don't get it. I'm out of here. I'm out of here if you don't give me my emotional support as well. And guess what? They do. They vote with their feet. They really do. And it's fantastic. I love the changes that this may drive for us across entire industries.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And what you said there is amazingly correct, right? It's the best question in the world is why. The best word in our civilization is why. And that's something that we haven't had. You're right. We haven't had that for so long. Now, I only wish one thing, that our pendulum wouldn't swing so wide all the time. You know, it would be nice if we just had the pendulum here where we all live, instead of going from nothing to now this generation is over the top on the other side. You know, eventually it settles down, but man, there's just all that disruption that happens when the pendulum isn't where it's supposed to be, where it isn't centered, right?
And the difference is COVID and everything else. They have gotten used to this type of disruption. So the disruption doesn't strike them as unusual. It strikes them as business as usual. Yeah. So how can education better prepare people for real life pressure situations?
Yeah, that was the first one that came in. I thought this is going to be a really good one here.
Yeah, this is a hard question in many ways.
Very hard.
Because on the one hand, what we're hearing feedback from the employers that my business works with, what we're finding is that they say that the students are not prepared on day one when they show up for a real job. We're hearing that as consistent feedback across the board. And I think it's important to throw into that is it's certainly not the students' fault that they're not prepared. You know, the students basically have signed up for a program, which is education or public education or things of the sort. And they are not agile enough to rotate to work. Now, there's many schools that have made that rotation, and they are moving forward to really try to connect education to the future world. Because too much of education, I think, for a long time, college is a good example. When I went to college, my parents wanted me to like philosophically grow up and think about things I'd never thought before, and a whole bunch of those kinds of things. And then therefore I would mature as a person and be able to be successful in the workplace one day. The problem was the therefore. They were non sequiturs. It didn't really lead to a therefore. And so now I think what students can do to better prepare for the real life pressure situations is don't accept that the teachers and your parents know what's best for you in these areas. You're probably closer to the subject than they are now. And trust your gut when you start to look at maybe non-traditional approaches. I don't ever advise someone don't go to college or don't do that, because there's many professions that require it. There's a lot of data that shows that you'll make more money in your life if you go, but I actually think that data, because it looks backwards, and we're all feeling the disruption of life right now.
What do you mean by
is
looks
freaking-
backwards? What do you mean by what do you mean by
Mhm.
looks? Sorry, every once in a while I'm going to jump in. Hey guys,
Yeah,
I'm going to jump in and just try and,
please.
if I understand it, everybody in the audience will. That's how I'm a safety net. That's what
I
they're a
like
lot
that,
smarter than I am. They're a lot smarter
Right.
than I am. So
Right now, I forgot what we were talking about, though. Exactly.
I know. So did I. What you were going through some definitions, and now the word escapes me. But
No, it's okay.
Go on with it. Go on with
Yeah.
it.
So I think the idea, if you look backwards, this is what I was trying to say. When you look backwards and you use all data, typically is a look at what's happened, right? And so I think what we're seeing right now is that there's very good data that says go to college and therefore you'll earn more in your life. But what we're realizing from that wisdom that came out many, 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 many years ago, and that's all we've held on to for all these years, is that in this exact moment in the evolution of all of us, it's maybe not true anymore. It may not be true that the things that worked 1 year ago, much less 5, 10, or 30 years ago, are still going to work. And so what I would encourage students is to poke, to test. Don't accept the feedback that you have to go to college, therefore, or you'll never earn proper money in your life. There are many, many situations where you should go to college. But there are some situations. Look, I've got a kid who didn't go to college, and it's really funny because I hope you'll enjoy this. There's many, many families, maybe in rural areas, socially depressed areas, different things where a kid goes off to college, and it's the first kid in the history of that family to go off to college, and it's a big deal. It's a really, really big deal, and the family celebrates, right?
Yep.
What my oldest did is he was the first one in probably 3 or 4 generations, and I'm talking cousins, aunts, uncles, who didn't go to college, and I was celebrating the idea. Why?
I bet you were.
Yeah, exactly. The checkbook was part of it, yes, but he was one of those kids who never thrived academically in school, and yet he's 24 years old and earning a great living and married, house, kid, everything. Like he's got the dream that you're looking for, and he skipped the whole 4 years. Now, he was the right kid for that. So I think what all kids need to do is figure out, who am I? Never an easy proposition. Never easy. But I know of things, including what my business does for kids, but I know of things out there that kids can answer this question. Do I really need to go to college or not? Do I need to come out with $100,000 of debt to become a X? And I suspect most will still go, and that is the right thing. I'm not criticizing it. I'm just saying that we need to work more closely with the kids around the edges, in particular, like my oldest, exceptional worker, smart kid, all of that. And, straight C, D student his whole life. It just wasn't the right program for him. That's all. It's just because the program doesn't work for you doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It means that you've not yet found the right path that's going to maximize the skills that you bring. And most everybody's got some skills. Everybody, really.
That is a beautiful point. That is a beautiful point. Boy, I'm so glad you popped on with us today.
Yeah,
And
just having
I
fun.
want to drive that point just a little bit further, because what you're talking about right now, in answering that question, you just encapsulated. I'm going to do a plug for both of us here.
Yeah.
Just encapsulated the Regeneration School Project, Voices at the Table, that coherency, and Leaf Lab.
Yeah.
And that's the company you're referring to, Leaf Lab. And what I'm saying there in that trail is that having that subject, right? You have
Right.
math, right? You need math, English, history,
Science and history.
science, right? And then you have, let's call it for now, life, a placeholder. And what that's doing is preparing kids for life, right? So you build on those subjects with counselors that support and drive you according to your interests, like what you're just saying now. Figure out who you are, figure out what your interests are. What are you going to be able to best pass forward, pay it forward? How is that going to go? It's easier to do with something you're passionate about, a mission you're on, versus just showing up to work or a job or whatever, right? So that education, including finance, so that kids aren't walking out into, in this case, college or to the world blind. They're not walking into a darkened room. They're being educated on how to talk to adults, how to have discussions and not arguments, but some discord with people that are in an area that it's respected, not rejected, right? That's the Regeneration School project, and then the handoff, the baton goes to Leaf Lab, where and I'll let you build on that part of it, but where that baton goes now, you're moving to the front of the employment world, because you're learning skills as you're say in 12th grade, 11th, 12th, somewhere in there's where you guys are starting, right? And into college and beyond, they're now getting a resume of skills that they have, because actual companies have things that need to be resolved, that you as a student now work for that company in solving that issue. Why don't you build on that and explain that a little bit better? But we're in the middle of a 3-week kind of thing going on here, where we're from showing up to earning money to education, and now the tie-in in those two. And next week we're going to be talking about how important that is, because education in college right now, you have people wanting Nicolas Maduro back in power, but socialism is the greatest thing on earth and capitalism is evil. We actually are studying those next in the next week. So why don't you talk about the Leaf Lab, because that's such a critical component to what I believe is coming. I think we all believe a utopia, as AI brings the costs of everything down and so forth and so on. Hit it. Leaf Lab, talk to me. What's it about?
Yeah, so Leaf Lab, at the very, very core of what we're doing, just to make it simple enough that so you can understand, Rod, so that everybody will, is we are providing work opportunity, actual real company work experience for students while they're still in school, so that when they show up on that first day of, whether it's the first day of college, first day of an internship, or first day of a new job, that they have those skills and competencies that companies value. So the companies really, depending, if you're going into an accounting role, the company's probably not going to value much of your liberal arts background. They want to know, what do you know and what can you do? And particularly, what can you do on day one? What can you do at 6 months? Will you be ahead or behind the curve? And so what the Leaf Lab has done is we have secured real work, real company work for students to work on. We provide mentorship for those students so that they're not abandoned and all on their own. They have a real industry leader who is able to join them for 15, 30, 45 minutes a week as necessary on their team calls as they work on real work that we've offered to the students to work on. So they're getting to do real work with real companies. They get to demo their progress to the company or to their own coaches in the Leaf Lab. And, I think our viewpoint is, we keep hearing there's a problem. Businesses say that the kids are coming out of college and they're not prepared. They're just not ready to roll. And there's two areas in specific that they're failing in. One is collaboration, and two is problem solving, complex problem solving.
Absolutely.
And so we solve for both of those in our program. We place kids on teams, so they are getting to collaborate. They're also collaborating with their mentor along the way and the client. So they're learning those collaboration skills as they go along. Problem solving, I think the biggest piece of problem solving is our philosophy and belief that there's no such things as failure. There's only experiments. And so the idea of an experiment is to figure something out. Yeah. Right? And so what we're doing is we're providing them an environment where experimenting is celebrated, innovation is celebrated, and failure is celebrated. I have a friend of mine who likes to say the phrase, go for no, meaning don't fail to answer the question somebody had because you're just too afraid of getting it wrong. Go for no, get it wrong, mess it up. We love that kind of stuff. It's messy. And guess what? That's where the real development occurs, is in that messiness. Now we're providing structure around the messiness to make sure that they're getting what they need. But what we hear from our clients is these students are now coming into those first jobs. I have a good example for you. We have a student that was a liberal arts student who got a finance job at Chase after going through our program, through JP Morgan Chase in New York, big job. He was the first person in that company's history in that office to be hired with a liberal arts background in the department that he's in, because they don't do that. They don't hire them. And yet he had skill levels that were so above and beyond. He actually they do agile training in their first 6 weeks in the company, and he got to skip it and go straight to work because he was able to prove. And we helped him build a digital portfolio coming out of our program. He was able to prove that he already had those skills.
I want you to talk about that a little bit, by the way, when you're done.
Yeah. So I am done. I think ultimately the idea is that we gave an opportunity to work on real work. During that time, he took advantage of what he had and really put his effort in. And then he walked out of that program with a distinct advantage of being selected, but that's not enough. It's got to be more than just being selected. You got to be successful when you get there. And he has a leverage that his peers did not have going in. And he never paid a penny. We don't charge students ever for their time in the lead. I was just going to ask
that. There's no cost in the lab, right?
No cost whatsoever to students ever for anything. There's no upsells. There's no initial cost. There's no ending cost. We don't take anything from the students. We are a We're a for-purpose business. There's for-profit and there's nonprofit, right? We're kind of sit in the middle where we're not afraid of making a profit, but our wildly important goals are all around helping and supporting the student. And when we see that, the money would fall, it follows. But the idea is that we want to give students that opportunity to do this with no constraints on the front end. Money's not a constraint. I don't care if you even have a resume. I'm not going to look at it if you do, to come join our program. I don't care what school you went to, as long as you were in school or have just recently graduated and plowing your way. I don't care about any of those things. What I care about are people who want to come in and make a difference. They want to improve themselves. They want to make this a better world that we live in. All those kinds of things.
That is beautiful, man. And this digital resume. Actually, hold on. Let's not. I want a description of that. Let's save it. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Because right now it's really good what Chris is asking here, because you're talking right now. What you're talking about is readiness. It's funny because we're talking about education. None of these people even knew you were on, but the subject matter is just so obviously so important to the show and to the people. The audience members, they're asking you questions and you didn't even know they were going to ask you them.
Right. I'm so glad you invited me. Just perfect that you invited me.
It worked out really well. What does readiness actually look like? Everyday work and leadership. In everyday work and leadership. That's exactly what you were just talking about, isn't it?
It really is. I think collaboration, problem solving, those are two of them that just jump out, because those are the specific ones that we hear so many employers asking about. And that is what readiness looks like. That is literally, you're going to show up to a job and you've already had experience working in teams, working in distributed teams. I mean, some of your teammates may not be in the room or even in the same state as you. That's a skill set.
Right.
And it's an important
Hey,
skill set.
and there's some people from other parts, not many, but other parts of the world. Isn't there other
Yeah,
countries,
we
some
do. So we
people?
have a global program, and we
Yeah.
because it's not a job. You know, the students aren't getting paid to do this work. Most of the students ask us the question in the interview, how much is this going to cost me? They always ask that question. And
Well,
I
you got to
love getting
remember
this.
what they're gaining. You know, look at what they're gaining. My God, yes.
Right. I mean, they're getting just the certifications we issue them at the end of their time, assuming they've met the program's qualifications, they get certified in several different agile areas, agile method out, and companies pay thousands of dollars to certify their employees in this, and we give it to the students for free.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the digital, so now let's fill that out. What does that look like? So I've seen it. So it looks like, to me, it's very similar to what's not very, it's a whole different thing, but to wrap your head around it, I said, okay, this looks like the Boy Scouts in accomplishments, that the badges that they've
Right.
earned. These accomplishments are certified. They've been inspected. They've been approved and signed off on. You got your book, right? I made it all the way through. I did that. And that's kind of what it looks like. But describe it exactly how that works. So I get certified. I've gone through the program. I'm now starting to. I've already started. Now maybe I'm starting to look for work. I can pull this up and say I've got these How does it look? What is it? What is it? Talk to me.
Yeah, so I wish I had my share screen ready for you. I'll do it on a future show with you sometime to show you, to give you a visual on it. But what it typically looks like is not a resume. A resume is really a look back on everything that you've done in your career. And as I think we all know today, AI writes those things. There's AI on the other end reading those resumes, and now you have algorithms talking to algorithms. And it's not always a recipe for meaningful improvement. Let's leave it at that. So what it looks like for us, though, is that we have, for instance, let's say a team of students demos some progress they've made on a project to their coaches first. We record those sessions. Let's say they demo directly to a client. We're on those calls with them. We don't just cut them loose with, we don't cut them loose with company employees, because my own experience is they're too quick to scream and yell at people. And I don't want that for the students. I want a safe environment for them. There's plenty of time in the future for them to get screamed and yelled at. Let's learn in a safe environment. And ultimately they're coming out of this with digital proof of what they've done. Actually, what's really fascinating is I have a team of students right now taking those videos. These are long form videos when they do a demo. It might be a 20-minute demo, let's say. But I have a team of students whose their future is in social media and digital editing and some of those types of things. They're working on these, and they'll take one of those videos and clean it up with some tools that we provided to them, and they'll kick it back in a 15-second video or a 2-minute video, whatever the request is. And they're using AI to do most of this, but they're very hands-on. And so we're trying to help them develop their AI skills as they go, that particular group, giving them a sensibility for what works and doesn't. This is very real world stuff. And now students can actually show the video of what the work that they've done. They can show the digital certification, the badge that they've earned along the way. And I like to just simply call this, they're bringing the receipts when they go interview for jobs. And that's a whole lot different than a resume that says, here are the things that the AI cleaned up and said I did in my past. It's not the same thing as being able to show what you've done.
Bad timing there. I was a little late on the click. That is powerful. That I was just going through it. We got a ton of questions here now. All of a sudden, I only had 2 or 3 when I was on. Now that you're on, now we got like 10.
I love it.
Okay,
we'll have to spend some more time together, won't we?
I think that'd be a good idea. Who wins the popularity contest? Penny. Thanks a lot.
Yeah,
It's my
fine.
show, man.
Yeah, but I'm
So-
just popping my head. I'm just popping my head in and out. It's not the same thing. It's easy. It's easy to be the hero when you only spend 20 minutes here. You're dedicating yourself to this.
You're that new shiny toy in the
Yeah.
playroom, right?
Exactly. Remember the first time you touched AI? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Hey, do you have time for a couple more questions?
Let me just take a quick peek.
Any
I am
ones that
good.
you want?
Yeah. I'm actually good for at least another a little bit for sure. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Well, then we've got a few questions here. I want you to jump on. Like this
Let's
one
do it.
right here. I think this one's pretty cool.
Mhm.
And Tony, what role does mentorship play in building lasting opportunity?
Yeah,
That's a
I think
softball to you, brother. That's got to be
I
a
know.
softball to you.
I don't even have to think about what the Leaf Lab does to answer this one. I can just think of my own life. Is I have
There you go.
mentors from 20 and 25 years ago in my life. I know I might be a little older than some of the folks watching here, right? But I have these mentors in my life that are still in my life today. So I
Wow.
think about lessons I learned. I worked for a big pharma company. This is now going back probably 20 years. And my first year in the company, like everything I did turned to gold. I was like, I can't do wrong here. They love the work I'm doing. It's so incredible. And my boss, who I admired and was a true mentor, kind of a jerk, but a true mentor, and a jerk in the good way. And he when we did my year in review, he sent out one of those 365 surveys where the business and your customers and everybody can say, they can give feedback on you. And when my 365 came back, it was like off the charts. The feedback was like, never worked with someone better. And you're probably sitting here wondering, why is he tooting his horn? Never worked with someone better. Never, this guy's the real deal. I love all of this. My boss stopped and he paused. And like, I literally learned how to pause from this. 10 seconds, he looks at me and he says, if I ever see a 365 like that again, I'll fire you immediately. And I was like, what are you talking about? Are you crazy? They love me. They love me. I'm the best. What are you talking about? Did I just see this? And he says to me, if everyone loves you, I did not see one person challenge the work that you're doing in there. And if that's the case, you're underperforming and you're not getting anywhere what your potential is, and you're not calling balls and strikes. And I'm not having someone like that work for me. Wow, like I've been chewing on that feedback for the last 20 years now, trying to understand what does it mean. Here I am 20 years later, and I'm still telling the story like it happened this morning, because that's the way it feels to me. That's what mentorship is, right? And what was he going for? I get that you're not calling balls and strikes. You probably got to make a few enemies along the way. Truthfully, that's probably corporate think. But, I'm not even sure he's right or wrong on all of this. But the fact that he said this in a way that's forced me to think about this for my entire career. I haven't worked for him in 19 years, but here we are, That's what true mentorship is people who can bring those sort of paradigm shifts into your life to help you. And that's going to bring you to that starting job that first day. And you're going to look and sound and feel a little different than everybody else, because mentorship will help you get there.
Yeah. And you start off, I was talking about this earlier with somebody. You start off with mentorship. You know what you know, right? In life, you know what you know. Okay. So your decision making as you start off is all the things that you know so far, right?
Right.
With mentorship, that education, that knowledge, you're not having to learn new. You're learning from somebody who been there, done that, knows, somebody who knows, right? So your decision making processes literally are elevated from the start instead of catching up to it, right?
And you should know it never ends. It never, meaning like my three co-founders in my business that we work together, I consider them my mentors. We're equals financially, work-wise, whatever. We're all equals, but I don't think of it that way. I think of them as my mentors because they have so many experiences that I don't have, and they know things I don't know.
True.
And I don't agree with everything they mentor me on, but even the things I don't agree on forces me to think about it. So
I want you to answer this and me to answer this one. But before that, Bradley Pump, he was on one of my first shows. And every once in a while he pops in, especially in financial and in education ones. This one happens to be both. But I promised him, I said, Bradley, whenever I see you, I'm going to give you a shout out. So Bradley Pump, here's your shout out. I always remember that name for some reason. Now he's probably a little more our style than the younger folks we've been talking to. But you answer it first, and then I'll answer what I think as well. How early should financial literacy be introduced in education?
The first time your kid comes to you and says, the first time your kid comes to you and says, Mom and Dad, I want to do a lemonade stand. That's the day it begins. For most kids, it's somewhere around 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. They want to go out and get 25 or 50 cents for a glass of lemonade. In Texas, you can get about $1.50 probably, for a cup this big. And that's where it starts. So I know when
out of a packet with the
stuff
you pour out of the packet.
Yes. So I know that with my own kids, I'm like, they came back. I didn't tell them anything. I bought the lemonade. I gave them the water, the table, the everything. They set it up and they came in. They're like, Dad, I made $12. And I'm like, no, you didn't. Because that lemonade cost me $1.50 and that water cost me 25 cents. And my table that you rented, I could get $10 an hour for it, but I'm only going to charge you 50 cents an hour. So out of that $12, you actually only have $9.50. Oh, right. So that's literally where it has to start, and then never give up. I'll say one quick thing, and I want you to answer too, because I can't wait to hear what you're going to say. But the idea that there's been this idea for many years, I think, that you shield your kids from your financial life as adults, that you don't tell your kids what's in the bank account, how much money you make every year, the big deal that is coming that doesn't come sometimes. And the wisdom has always been, I don't want my kids to be stressed out. They shouldn't be thinking about my finances. They should be playing basketball in the back. Great. And there's nothing wrong with that advice. However, I don't know that it always serves. One of my kids, I tell him everything with my business, because my oldest kid is working in the work world. But my next one is pretty decent chance he's going to end up with some sort of business, entrepreneurship, something like that. The one with a degree, by the way, it's kind of backwards, but he's about to finish his college degree, and I tell him everything because I want him to learn how to run a business, and there's no better way to do it.
So I'm going to answer it in through the lens of the Regeneration School Project.
Yeah, please.
Because I think that's where Bradley's coming from on this. I agree with you as far as the timing, age-wise. That makes perfect sense. And I love the way you posed it, the way you framed it. The lemonade stand, very clever. Because people do start thinking about, hey, I want to get some candy on my own. I want to have that first little bit of independence. They feel. The next big one is when they get a car, kind of thing. That independence. For me, I think it goes right. It's life, right? It's part of life. So that fifth core subject, for instance, in kindergarten, you start learning math by your 1, 2, 3. You start learning English, ABCs. Very basic, simple building blocks upon themselves, right? No reason that you can't start that same thing, maybe not kindergarten, maybe first, second, third-ish, fourth. You should really start looking at how finances actually work. What you just said to your boy, your boy,
my son,
lemonade son, on the lemonade stand, that should be the early lessons learned and then built upon from there. So I agree with you. 5, 6. 5th grade-ish. Well, wait. How old did you say? 7, 8 years old. So that's second.
Yeah, 7, 8.
Grade.
Yeah, that's second, third grade. I mean, if they're old enough to know how to ask for 50 cents. If they are old enough to know how to say, I'll give you this, but I need 50 cents back. They understand that's a transaction. They're old enough for financial literacy. I should add, though, on the tail end of that, when I was running the recruitment department at Dr. Pepper back in the day, and I had a VP there who wanted to put us through financial literacy. You know, we were all adults, working professionals, directors, managers, that kind of thing, and it was so valuable for me to understand these sorts of things that I never picked up along the way. You know, I was a journalism major. I didn't take any accounting or finance class. I didn't know anything.
Right.
So how early, you know, should you start? It doesn't matter where you are in your life now, because these things make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that we don't pay attention to, and we literally, well, I shouldn't say that we don't know. There's so many things that we don't know. Like you just said, as a journalist, you're not paying attention to numbers, you know,
Right.
through schooling, but how much different did it affect your life positively to have that literacy, to have that education, to have that readiness? You know, it's all building on itself. If you look at these questions, you know, pressure, stress, all these things are surrounding are caused by the things that we don't go into the world with from our educational system. We don't have that learning. If you would have learned that before Dr. Pepper, if you would have grown up in that literacy, then you're just that much further ahead. And all these things that we're talking about are just ways that how you can be better prepared for the world instead of walking into it blind. And that's the beauty of what we're doing, what we're working on together.
Yes.
Let me ask
I
you
don't
this.
know many 16, 17, 18-year-olds, 19, 20-year-olds that aren't busting their tail to prepare themselves for the future right now. So I don't mean to give FOMO to any of your listeners who are just playing video games all day today, but the reality is this is a generation that has, they figured it out before us, that they've been sold kind of a bill of goods, right? That it's not what used to work isn't going to work anymore. They've already figured this out. They know this. We don't know this always, but they do. And now they're doing proactive things to try and make a difference in this. And I'm so proud. I have to say, like, before I was working with this generation, I was listening to the media. And in what I thought I knew was that this was a lost generation, a wasted generation, all the terrible things you can say about them. You know, COVID, they don't know how to communicate. They don't know how to, so wrong. Every bit of this is just so wrong. And if any of it's true, it's the teachers and the parents' fault, if any of it's true. I see this generation, now that I'm working very closely with them every day, all day, every day, what I'm seeing from this generation is they're figuring stuff out. They are experimenting. They are trying things. They are worried about this, and they're not going to follow the path that's always been followed because they know it's bunk. It's not going to work. You know, this idea of go to college, get a whatever that's going to last you the rest of your life. You know, and I don't want to repeat all that, but you know, all these ideas here are in their minds, and they're not trusting the media. That's for sure. They're not. There's a lot of things that they're not trusting. And so they're kind of trusting their experience. And maybe when something like the Leaf Lab comes along that's built on experience, right? Not built, you know, there's nothing in our programs that says, well, this is the way it's always been done. We blow that up, right? That's nothing new. That's nothing, that doesn't make it like exceptional. I'm just saying we do it. You know, the way things have always been done is a recipe for failure, if you ask me. We need the disruption that's going on in the world today. Yeah, a lot of disruption. There's disruption on your roof right now, but it's for a purpose. I don't know what it is, but it's for a purpose, and all this disruption is very, very good. It's for looks, I think, and for I think they're actually doing it to irritate me. I think that's of course. Because I was thinking, you know, we have a holiday on Monday. Why didn't they do it on when the library is closed down? Well, it's their holiday. No, that's I know. Let me ask you this. You know a lot about AI. We were just talking about it. How can it be used responsibly without creating additional vulnerable
vulnerability.
Vulnerabilities.
Say it. Thank you. And that's a good point too, Rich, because the first thing that comes out with AI, the first thing people start talking about is, hey, be careful because they can mimic your parent or your kid. You know, and there's a lot of treachery about going on or about AI, and that's fair enough. But flip the coin on them.
Yeah. This question is probably an entire show, but I'll see what I can do in 60 seconds, right?
Yep.
But I like a thought that popped into my head when I saw the question come across here just now is that if AI is causing vulnerabilities and it's not being used responsibly, it's probably not helpful either. Meaning, I think the question assumes that if you're not using it if you're using it responsibly, it will be successful, and if you're not using it responsibly, you might even be more successful. And I don't believe that. I believe that responsible use of AI is the same thing as effective use of AI. And I'll tell you one thing that I have seen as a theme only very recently. I've seen this pop up in 2 or 3 places recently. Is the idea that schools that are forcing their students to avoid AI, stay away from AI, they're running it through programs to see if they've used AI, all of that kind of stuff. What you have in that scenario are teachers who have failed their students. If AI can answer the questions that the teacher is posing to the students by simply just punching it in and getting an output on it, shame on the teacher for creating a program that AI is going to be used so irresponsibly. That's what irresponsible use of AI is, in my opinion. What the teachers should be doing is, you can use all the AI you want in the world. I know you're using the AI here, but I'm not looking for an output of a simple question with a simple answer that AI can provide for you. I really want to understand how you think and how you're teaching the AI to think. Because at the end of the day, the AIs are going to be our co-pilots one day. They're already becoming our co-pilots. How you treat your co-pilot makes a very big difference in how successful you are. And so I believe that teachers need to be embracing AI in a way where they're telling the students, yes, use the AI. You're not going to be able to just punch something in and get an answer out and skip all the time. If you don't mindfully create prompts and mindfully put a structure around those prompts to guide it where you want it to go for you as a co-pilot, then he's just a passenger. It's not a co-pilot, it's a passenger. And so I think the challenge for all teachers today is, how do we use AI in a way that's going to make you the pilot, not the co-pilot getting dragged along in the back?
I'll take it even a little bit further there. That makes perfect sense. Teachers should be, because kids are anyway. But what you just said, so now the teacher has the opportunity to teach the student through the class lessons. Now they're taking a test or they're giving an answer. Now the student has heard it once, then they input it into the AI. It's again, they're hearing it again. Then they're correcting the AI when it comes back, because I don't quite like the way that is, or the tone, or this should be that way, and correcting it there, like you said, the co-pilot. And before all of that, it was creating the student is creating the prompts. I'm even making students digital now. The student was creating the prompts. So now you've got that lesson, and then you can then have it read back to you out loud, so you can listen to it. I mean, now you have 3, 4, 5 touches on one aspect of one lesson. That's got to be a better, right? I mean, that's a better educational system. Just that standing on its own.
They say you need 7 touches to learn something. That's sort of in the training world, they'll say that. And I think about one of the tricks I used to do on my kids when they were little and we had to do homework together is I would have, like, there'd be a list of questions, right? And they just had to memorize and know the answer to them. I would flip it with them and say, you quiz me on the questions. Let me see how many I can get right. And they would be, now they turned into the teacher, and I turned into the student. This is my, my 9-year-old, and he's giving me the questions, and I'm like, I'm working it out. I'm speaking out loud as I'm thinking through the answer. I give an answer. He's like, you got it wrong. I'm like, no, now learning is fun for him. But guess what? When he's teaching me, I actually think he's learning more than when I'm teaching him. We know that's the case, right? So once again, Leaf Lab, I guess getting to hang out with you and answer these questions, I get a few little plugs here and there, right? But that's really the premise that the Leaf Lab is built on, is that let the students lead. We're here. There's fence posts. They're not going to fall off a cliff. And when we do it that way, the learning is much better. And that's just one of the 7 ways that you are working your way through to say that it's another iteration and it's another opportunity to learn. And it happens to be contextually very correct, because if you're not using AI in your job now in some capacity, at least minimally, to take off the administrative tasks for you, you're missing the boat. Some of us are driving with AI, and that's great. But at a minimum, everyone needs to at least let it do their administrative tasks for them.
Yeah, you need to be able to thrive, not just survive the coming AI. I mean, people, I don't think. Well, if you're working at a company that doesn't use any AI, that's a company that's probably really falling behind. Just, I mean, I'd imagine looking around the company, and it's probably not growing. And that's not because of the AI necessarily, but because of the leadership inadequacies. So that's probably not a great place for you to be. Rich in here asked a totally different question with the AI question first, and then so this is an AB personality person here. I think, what signs show a system will hold when pressure hits? Great question, both of them.
Yeah, that's an amazing question, and I'm hesitant to answer it, and I'll tell you why. No, nothing bad, but my partner Simon, and my partner Jeff, and the two of them are
good people.
They're both brilliant in this area. I'm a complete newbie in this area to understand how systems work and these sorts of things. And so I don't want to answer this one because they're going to laugh at me if I do. But they have brilliant answers for it. We'll save it for a later show. I'll ask them offline, and then I'll come back and look real brilliant.
Then we'll bring the question back up.
Correct. It is a good question.
I'm going to jump on it because there's a couple of different things here that in the shows that we're doing, we talk about systems and different things. One of the systems is comparing, say, capitalism, a system, to socialism, a system, right, to communism, a system, so on and so on. But in those systems, it boils down to the college kids of today, asking a lot of questions and feeling a lot of pressure. I answered this one similar further, questions up above further, but so young kids today, younger generations today, for the first time are really struggling to buy their first house. Okay.
For sure.
They're holding back building, and all sorts of things are going on that is causing that. Not necessarily the economy, but there's things that are causing that, and the costs and this and that and this and that, and they're actually looking towards another system because they feel that capitalism is failing them, and the current system they live under, and turning away from that and looking at Venezuela as a great place to be is caused, that decision process is caused from a lack of education. So what signs show a system will hold when pressure hits? It is a hard question to answer. The sign. Damn, that is a hard question to answer.
There's an answer to this, and I want to bring it back to you because all I have to do is ask my partners. They have a good answer for this. I know.
All right, then I'm not.
That's not satisfying for any of your listeners. I know.
I'm not, I don't want Simon, I don't want those guys laughing at me either. But
Yeah,
but
well, Rich wins the contest for the hardest question. He stumped both of us here. So
you
that's
did.
good.
And I've done
Way
470
to go,
shows.
Rich.
It's the hardest question I've ever hit.
There
And
you
it's
go.
the signs that show a system will hold under pressure. But
Yeah.
how we talked about it in capitalism versus, the system of capitalism, when problems happen or when walls come down, do they flee capitalism or do they run to it?
The natural instinct is to run to it, I believe. That's the natural instinct, is to run to it. That's why my 7-year-old says, I want to run a lemonade stand, because that feels right to them, right? They didn't go and say, Mom and Dad, can you set up a system for me that's going to share my money with my brother and sister, and I'm going to have to work really hard, and my sister, who I know doesn't work as hard as me, is going to get the same amount as me. Like, that's just not intuitive. That's learned behavior. And it's usually learned in an environment that would make that look attractive. And I get it.
Interesting.
That's how it happens. But I think that the natural instinct, I think we're born with a capitalism instinct in us, and it's beaten out of us over time, along with our happiness, to turn us into socialists. Personally, it's just my view.
There's no way in hell you're going to get laughed at for that answer. That rocked.
Fine.
That rocked, dude.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
So on to Jason. We're going to finish up the show on Jason. Been going an hour and a half now. Amazing. You were going to give me 15 minutes, and now you're working on an hour. Good job, brother.
Who knew, right? I'm having fun. It went by fast for me, I tell you.
It is. It's amazing how fast that this time has gone by. How can
hope your listeners, it went by for them?
Yeah. Well, they keep coming back, so hopefully we're all on the same page there. How can parents help kids build decision-making skills early? We're ending on probably the best question of the day. Nothing against all the other ones, and nothing against Rich and for the hardest question. That rocked.
Right.
But this is a really good question. I love this one.
Yeah. This one I can answer pretty quickly, I think. Let them start making decisions as early as possible when the consequences are low. So that when the consequences, when they get older, when the consequences start getting much, much bigger for the decisions that they make, then at that time, they already have the muscle memory of how to make decisions. And they get some right and they get some wrong. That's fine. A good parent-child environment will account for that and let them get it wrong and celebrate it. Go for no, make wonderful things happen. And so that's my answer to this.
Great answer. Hey, I'm gonna wrap her up here. It's 12:30 now. Do you have anything you want to add or anything you want to leave these wonderful 333 people, 333 people on?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't mind just letting me do a quick little plug at the end for the Leaf Lab again.
Please.
And just say that if you're a student right now, any age, I don't care what age you are, if you're a student and you're interested, come find us. It's leaflab.org. And there's a dash between the L and the E. So L-EAF, leaflab.org. Go apply. It'll take you literally, it's about a 2-minute application, maybe a 1-minute application. And we'll talk to you. We'll see if this is a fit for you to be able to learn in this particular way. If you're a business,
what are some of the questions? What are some of the questions of the application?
They're basic, name, contact information, and then a little bit around your interests. That's all that's in the application.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We want to know what they're interested in learning, really. And I don't really care what you've been learning. I want to know what you want to learn. That's what's most important to us.
Nice.
So and I think if you're a business and you would love to meet some students, maybe college students that are getting ready to graduate, let me build a little incubator for you. I'll give you 5 students, and they can work on your work. We'll mentor them. We'll do all the work, making sure that the work is getting, worked on, and mentor them along the way. But you can get your work worked on. Just don't give me something so critical that you're going to get fired if the students don't do it so well. And don't give me something that doesn't already have a solution. We only take work that doesn't have a solution. we're not bringing kids in to go like work for adults and like get free labor. That's not the point of any of this. The point is that the students are getting to actually solve things and do stuff. And then I say, finally, if you're in a school system and you'd like to see this with your students, let's talk.
Now I heard a couple things just to build on that. I heard, I moved here from Chicago.
Yeah.
Actually a suburb of Chicago called Naperville.
Yep. I'm familiar with it. Very, very familiar with it.
I know you are,
know.
because the Naperville Schools District has the Leaf Lab program in their district.
Yes.
I understand.
They do. It's a part of the school program for credits, and they are right on the front. They are doing amazing stuff.
And then you have another school, a digital school, online school. I talked to her. I think her name's Jennifer. One of the founders of that organization, and that school runs on Leaf Lab as well as others. I've only heard of a couple of situations, but that's true, right?
Yeah, it's great stuff. We love doing it. High schools and colleges both. And, we don't put constraints on the front end. The constraints happen with life, but we don't, I don't care what your resume looks like. I don't care if you've had a job or not had it. I don't care about any of those things. I just want to know that you're in school, you're trying to learn, you're trying to prepare yourself for the future. You want to be ready on that first day of work or first day of internship. You want to set yourself apart. Those are the kids that I'm looking for. And at that point, everything's good. If you're motivated and you want to go get stuff done, we're here for you. The door's open.
Love it, man. Well, give everybody a big wave. I'm going to throw you back in the green room. Hang out for a minute. I'll come and meet you in a couple minutes.
You know what, Rodd? I have a candidate interview I'm doing right now. So let me jump on that, and then we'll catch up this afternoon.
Are we okay? All right. Text me, would you? Oh, I don't have your phone number. Email me, would you?
I will. All
right. See ya. All right. Great show, folks. I appreciate everybody being here. Oh shoot, Penny, can you, in the private chat, can you put your contact information in so that I can copy and paste it onto the comments here? Because you're gone. Hopefully he'll come back. So let me do this. Let me move this over here. Let me come down to here. Where are we? Right here. And let me just say this. I've got some computer issues challenge me. Hey, the sound is off, folks. It sounds wonderful, doesn't it? Their lack of sound sounds wonderful, doesn't it? All right, so here we go. God dang it. Sorry, guys. This is what I wanted to say, okay? Are you ready? Are you guys all set? You prepared? Oh, I wasn't ready. Why does it do that? All right, I'm gonna get back to this in a second. That went horribly wrong.
I hit the wrong button. I'm putting it in the chat right now, though. And I have my student
talk for a second. I
have my student holding
talk
on the
for a
other
second.
line. Can you hear me?
Oh my God, I hear you perfectly. Do you hear me?
I do, just fine. All right, there's my email address, and here is the website to the whole deal. Okay, very good. And now I really do need to jump for my student. I don't want to make him wait.
No. Go get your person.
All right, sounds good. We'll talk soon.
You got it, brother.
All right, bye. Thanks.
Bye. All right. So before we wrap up, oh, so funny. Before we wrapped up, I want to slow this down, slow us all down here for a moment. Not because nothing we talk about here works if it stays abstract, right? Education only matters if it prepares people to act. Systems only matter if people understand how to use them. And opportunities only grow when responsibility is paired with structure. That is the thread running through this entire week. If you found yourself nodding along at any point, here's the quiet question to sit with. What is one system in your life that deserves clarity instead of avoidance? Is it your finances? Maybe it's your time. Is it your work? Is it your learning? Could it be your voice? You don't need to fix everything. Agency rarely shows up as a breakthrough. It shows up as a decision to stop guessing and start structuring. That is why the show exists. And that is why the people who support it do so quietly and intentionally, because they believe informed people make better decisions, stronger families, and more resilient communities. If this conversation added value, the call to action is simple. Stay connected. Subscribe to the channel. Join us on Substack. Support the work if you're able. Not because we're selling certainty, but because we are committed to building clarity. Next week, we take this conversation even further, from education to readiness, into systems, economics, and protection. We're not doing that emotionally. We're not doing that politically, but honestly. Until then, take care of yourselves. Wave at somebody. Take care of each other. And keep choosing preparation over panic. We'll see you next time on Insights and Straight Talk with Rodd Duff. I'm your host and producer Barbie. And with that, stay after the outro, but I am out.
Before you leave, if you'd like to watch another one of the podcasts, click the first link in the description. We love having you here and we appreciate all your support.
And with that, producer Barbie and I are out. Preparation.